In the last video, we hit a wall. We found the ID of the login field, that was easy. We found the ID of the password field, that was easy too. But what got us stuck was the login button. When we tried to locate the ID for that one, we found out that the developer basically ghosted us. The only thing that we had there was the class equals radius. And right then and there, I told you not to use it and just stop. And today I'm going to tell you why that is. Why utilizing the class attribute is actually the fastest way to ship tests that do work today, but they don't work tomorrow. And I call this the blue shirt trap. Welcome to Testeroni. I'm Casper and I'm here to help you become test automation engineers one slice at a time. So let's look at this button again. So we are here at the Internet Heroku app again. And so right click on login, inspect. And as we said, we have this class equals radius, but we don't have any kind of an ID. And the problem with the radius class applied here is that it's styling. It's for the design of the element. It's for how the button looks rather than what it actually does. So we know that it's rounded, but we don't know what it actually is. And to give you some kind of an analogy, going back to the blue shirt trap, let's imagine that you are a detective on a case and you are issuing an arrest warrant for a suspect or someone you know is culpable of the crime. And you just describe them as the guy in the blue shirt. And that's not really a good arrest warrant because tomorrow your suspect changes his clothes and suddenly he vanished. He walks away free. And so your arrest warrant fails. And in the same way, your test would fail in this scenario. Because if a designer decides tomorrow that the button is no longer to have rounded corners, but rather it's going to be rectangular or circular or whatever, then suddenly the locator you've created based on the class of radius is not really applicable anymore. The button is there. It's still the same button, it still fulfills the same function on the website, and yet your automation fails. And it fails because while you thought that you were looking for a specific button, you're actually looking for rounded corners. And there is another trap with classes. And to visualize this, we're going to actually edit this class because a pro tip here, you can actually edit the contents of a given attribute within your DevTools on the right hand side. So we're going to do it for the demonstration purposes. Let's maybe even enlarge this a bit so that we can clearly see what we're doing. So in a different situation, you may very well have a button which has no clear class like here, like radius. It can be something like button, button large, button primary. That's something you are going to come across very often when actually trying to automate various web applications. Beginners pretty often have the tendency to just select this whole thing, copy it into their locator and be happy about it because they have uniquely identified an element. But that's not really the case. In this scenario, we are actually dealing with three different classes because the white space in class attribute value actually denote that you are giving it another value to the list of values that it has. So when you have something like this, it does not mean that there's a unified class that just goes button, spacebar, button large, spacebar, button primary. It's actually three classes that are applied to this button simultaneously. So we have the class of button, we have the class of button large, so that's the second class applied to the same element, and button primary being the third one. So you actually have three classes. So if you actually copy this whole thing into your locator, you are actually telling it to not only be coupled with the rounded corners like before, the shape, you're actually tying it up to three styling classes at the same time. You are tying it to the fact that this is, for example, a typical style of a given button. You are tying it to the fact that it is large, and you are tying it to the fact that it has the primary color, for example, blue or something like that. If any of these changes, be it the shape, the color, or the size, then suddenly your test breaks. That is extremely fragile because you are no longer even tying it to one styling characteristic, which was fragile already in the example of the rounded button. But now you are actually tying it up to 3 characteristics which may change at any moment at the designer's whim or a decision of someone else higher up. So you are actually making it very, very fragile and prone to breaking at any moment. So is the class attribute always the source of all evil? Not always, because sometimes you will come across classes that are functional. So they describe the function of a given element kind of uniquely, because you may come across something like class equals login button or class equals button registration. In that case, it is pretty okay to use it. It's still not ideal, but it's pretty passable. It describes the function, not the looks of it. So it's safer. No, not perfect, but safer. But if you see anything like text align or, I don't know, center, rectangular, radius, stuff like that, run away, run to the hills. And so we end up in a tough spot because we don't have the ID, so the social security number, the unique identifier of our login button. We can't really use the class because of the blue shirt trap that we have just described. And so what is really left to do in order to locate an element like that? So let's refresh the page to get rid of our alterations to the classes of that button, and let's look at what doesn't change as much as the design might. So first of all, we can see that we have the text of login. This does not really change because it's a login button, and we see that we have that login inside. So that's the first thing, the text. Secondly, the function doesn't change because it's still a button of type submit. And this is also not that likely to change because yes, it is a button that functions in such a way that it submits the form that it's connected to. So it's plenty safer to use that rather than something that may change because a design changed. Because in order for the submit type to change, the whole design of the application architecture should change, not only the visuals. And the third thing is the location, because it's still inside the form of the login. You can see that when you hover over the button, you have the button, but when you go up, you have all the other elements, and all of them are actually encompassed by the form tag. So it's still inside that form. So the location also is very unlikely to change. And so that's the third thing that you should keep in mind. So the text, login, the function, submit, and the location, the relation to other elements, so being inside of the form. And this is your new strategy. When the ID is missing, you stop looking at the styling, the looks, and you start looking at the function and the relationships and the contents of a given element. So you need a locator that basically tells you, I need an element that says login, or I need an element that serves this function inside of this structure. The problem is the standard CSS locators are pretty bad at looking out for text. They can't really do that. And in order to do that, we need a heavy weapon, and that heavy weapon is called XPath. XPath is the only language that lets you say, find me an element that is of type button that has the text of login. And it lets you target the soul of the element rather than just the looks of it. And in the very next video, we are going to do exactly that together. We are going to go line by line and create our first XPath together that will target this precise button of login, which is so problematic for us to target using the methods we have learned so far. And the good news is it's actually way easier than you think. So please stop relying on the outfit and start relying on content and the relations to other elements on the page. And so I heartily invite you to subscribe to the Testeroni channel and like this video in order not to miss the next one, where we're going to investigate this problem and find a solution once and for all on how to actually locate such elements. And until then, please remember to keep on rocking.